the floor is yours. Whenever
Thank you so much.
You should be able to handle it on your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, my dear colleagues. It's so nice to be with you. I'm very pleased to be here with you. And the title of my presentation, as announced, is Integrating Global English Pedagogy into the English Classroom, Novel Perspectives, Novel Practices. And first of all, I would like to thank Elinet and Elinet seminar team, particularly Kemaloglu-Er and Michael Budansky as the team leaders, and Paolo Delagu, my dear colleague, and Nadia Lamprecht as the seminar coordinators for putting their efforts into this exciting seminar series. And I'm the first one. I'm very pleased that you gave me this honor. Thank you so much. So what is Elinet? Elinet is a global network that provides an online platform to develop a community of practice of researchers, practitioners, policymakers, curriculum developers, materials writers, and students to collaborate and share knowledge, particularly in the fields of EMI and global Englishes. And you can reach the website through Googling and Elinet. And Elinet is led by Dr. Kemaloglu-Er from the University of Glasgow, and we would like to express our heartfelt thanks to her for all her valuable efforts to establish and coordinate this illuminating and mind-broadening platform. And as a scholar working particularly on global Englishes, I'm happy to be a part of the global Englishes community and to be working in the team of Elinet as the global Englishes research lead coordinator and Turkey assistant lead coordinator. And I greet my dear team colleagues from here. So what is global Englishes? What do we mean by global Englishes? Let me make a brief introduction to global Englishes as a novel perspective of today's world. Today, English is used in the global arena by millions and millions of speakers, particularly non-native in quotation marks. There's another saying for it now, second language users is a dynamic social reality experienced every second in every nook and corner of the world, like we're doing now. And it's also a current fact that non-native, or in other words, second language speakers have outnumbered native first language speakers by almost 5-to-1. And in their interactions, typically taking place in multilingual and multicultural settings, English is continuously shaped by the individual interlocutors as a means of communication to reach mutual intelligibility. And global English is therefore, with its variability-rich nature and with an adaptable, fluid, and ever-changing mode, cannot be defined with the norms of standard English established by native speakers, first language speakers. It has an ever-changing mode. It is continuously dynamic, so it cannot be explained with the norms of standard English. Global English as a paradigm acknowledges multifaceted varieties of English worldwide in their own right, and accepts global users of English with their own unique characteristics and with their own sociolingual and sociocultural backgrounds. And global Englishes includes the concepts of world Englishes, English as a lingua franca, and English as an international language. And as a field of research, it explores the diverse use and users of English associated with its global spread, as well as its implications. As for global English's pedagogy, let me first start with my own story and my series of research in the field of global Englishes. Sorry, there's a problem. Okay. So I received my name is Elif Kemaloglu-Er. I received my BA in Translation and Interpreting from Boğaziçi University. I got my MA in Teaching English as a Foreign Language from Bilkent University in Turkey, and I earned my PhD degree in English Language Education from Boğaziçi University. And I am a teacher researcher indeed. I taught English in the intensive English classes of universities in Turkey for 20 years. I worked at Yıldız Technical University in the first years of my teaching. Then I worked as an instructor of English in the academic English focused classes at Boğaziçi University for 10 years. I also taught classes to pre-service teachers there. And you see one of our classes there. Then I was appointed to a new position. I have been working as an assistant professor in the Department of Translation and Interpreting at Adana Alparslan Turkish Science and Technology University since 2018. I also worked as the department chair and the head of the International Relations Office in this institution. So, many of us may be familiar with GE. And I learned about GE when I started doing PhD in English language education through some ELF-related courses. Then I decided to focus on ELF in my PhD thesis study on the subject of ELF-aware pre-service teacher education. And in my dissertation, supervised by Yasemin Bayurt and Nikos Fakis, I studied the ELF-related perceptions and teaching practices of pre-service teachers exposed to an ELF-aware teacher education program. And this intensive research, together with my related conference papers and publications, have been informing my own GE-aware teaching practices ever since. Sorry. And I have published several GE-related articles and book chapters and presented several papers since the completion of my thesis. This is one of my interest areas. And under GE, my research and publication mainly focus on 4 items. Comparison of native and non-native speakers. On this topic, you can read my most recent co-authored article with Robert J. Lowe, presenting a dual ethnographic investigation of our native and non-native speaker teacher identities. And it was published by the Journal of Language, Identity, and Education. My second research interest is on GE-aware pre-service teacher education. I have developed together with Yasemin Bayurt and Nikos Fakis, as well as Esma Biricik Deniz and Yonca Özkan, GE-oriented teacher education models for pre-service teacher education, and tested their effectiveness through the analysis of teachers' perspectives and practices. An example is an article published in the ELT journal, which is entitled ELF-aware pre-service teacher education, practices and perspectives. I have also focused on the meanings of GE-related concepts by writing articles and book chapters on the meanings of ELF, as well as the meaning of culture in the English classroom. Some examples include English as a lingua franca defined by pre-service teachers, published in the Journal of English as a Lingua Franca, and defining ELF as a social linguistic concept and the pedagogical perspective, published as a book chapter by Peter Lang. And meanings of the phenomenon of culture and integrating culture into English classes is another article of mine. My fourth research interest is about global English's pedagogy. My studies investigate in this arena, investigate the integration of global Englishes into English language teaching. I suggest several ways and hands-on practices for real-life applications for global English's pedagogy, which is one of my main research interests. And for GE-aware lesson plans and hands-on practices, you can read our co-authored chapter to be published very soon by Routledge, and it is entitled Integrating ELF-aware Pedagogy into English Classes, Practical Ideas and Hands-on Practices, and it is edited by Yasemin Bayurt and Eva Ilse. So, okay. So, in global, sorry, I can't see the screen. So I will just, okay. In our seminar today, we will see that global Englishes as a pedagogical perspective supports the inclusion of world Englishes in English lessons. In other words, we should integrate not only English varieties of the inner circle, where English is used as a native language, but also English varieties of the outer and expanding circles, where English is used as a second and foreign language into our lessons. And this is a quite limited scheme, as you know, but this is a very well-known scheme, Kashur circles. So I included this here, but know that we may choose to include all other forms of varieties free from borders, free from country borders into our classes, like immigrant Englishes or Englishes used in business or academic life into our lessons. So let me ask a question to you. Would you be willing to include different English varieties in your lessons? Yes, no, maybe, and why? You can write your answers in the chat box or show us your reactions. Okay, you can show me your reactions. Yes, no, okay. Yes, okay, I saw a yes from Selim Albay. Sorry for that. Yes, yes, okay, yeses are coming. Yes, I would like to, but it's difficult with policies of the Ministry of Education. Yes, definitely. Okay. All right. Integrate. I mean, include I will give you examples. Don't worry about it. Okay. So I have seen your yeses and your willingness. That's some kind of good news for us. And okay. So let me go on. And as you know, global English is a mindset. Is a mindset. It says accept and include. It says accept non-native varieties in their own right and accept non-native speakers with their own unique characteristics and include them in your lessons. So for a moment, close your eyes and think, my dear colleagues. Close your eyes, please. Are you closing your eyes? Let me check. Okay. All right. How would you feel if people accepted you as you are with your own unique characteristics? How would you feel if people accepted you fully as you are with your own unique characteristics? Okay, my second question to you, how would you feel if the way you speak English was acknowledged by the other parties without any pressures of criticism and discrimination? How would you feel about this? How would you feel if the way you speak English was acknowledged by the other parties without any pressures of criticism and discrimination? Okay, my dear colleagues, my third question to you, how would you feel in a humanitarian, egalitarian, and democratic communication environment where the speakers comfortably and naturally communicate by being themselves? I'm repeating as you close your eyes, as you're expected to close your eyes. My third question to you, how would you feel in a humanitarian, egalitarian, and democratic communication environment where the speakers comfortably and naturally communicate by being themselves? Feel awesome, feel great, feel greatest. The grades are coming. Okay. All right. Feel great. Okay, you can give me reactions. Feel great. All right, you would feel great. All right, okay. So, all right. And how would you feel in such situations? You said you would feel great. You would possibly feel comfortable, free, and peaceful in more specific terms. You would most possibly feel accepted, right? This is what we always seek for, right? Acceptance. You would most possibly feel as you are, as you're fully accepted as you are. And how would you feel in such situations? You can write your responses in the chat box or show us your reactions. You have already done so, and you can show us your further reactions. Okay, are there any other reactions? Okay, all right. So acceptance is the key word in global Englishes, acceptance, okay? Are there any comfortable, feel safe, feel great? If I couldn't express what you have written, sorry for this, but I am trying to verbalize all of them because everyone feels the pressure to speak perfectly. Feel safe, comfortable, feel great, okay. So acceptance, then global English is maybe something good, right? In this manner. Acceptance is a key word in global Englishes, my dear colleagues. Global English is a humanistic, social linguistic phenomenon and cannot be defined with the norms of standard English. It's a highly complex phenomenon with a life of its own, with linguistic, pragmatic, and cultural flexibility and contextualized experiences. Okay. And G or ELF can also be taken as a pedagogical perspective. And when we have a look at G or ELF as a pedagogical perspective, in it we see that non-native varieties are accepted in their own right, and non-native users are acknowledged with their own unique characteristics. And intelligible deviations from standard English are not signs of incompetence. Rather, they are acceptable variations in their own right. And in G, ELF pedagogy, non-native speakers' own local cultures and identities are integrated into the English classes. And there is limited use of L1 as a resource in the English class. And this view indeed sharply contrasts with the EFL perspective, where there is strict adherence to standard English, where the deviations from the native norms are seen to be signs of incompetence, where there is emphasis on native speakers' cultures, and which usually neglects cultural backgrounds and L1s of non-native speakers. Is this clear to you? I hope it is clear. So there are two sharply contrasting views, briefly, I mean, in a nutshell, in the literature, okay? And GE pedagogy is against the ideology of native speakerism, which assumes that native speakers are the authorities and owners of the language and are superior to non-native speakers. And those who use it as an additional language have to treat native speaker competence as the target. In contrast with this, GE pedagogy is a pluricentric and postnormative approach which accepts non-native varieties in their own right and non-native speakers with their own unique characteristics, rather than assess them against a native speaker benchmark. And in GE pedagogy, we see Grosjean's holistic view that the bilingual is not two monolinguals in one person. The bilingual is a unique being, okay? It's not two monolinguals. Rather, the coexistence of two languages in the bilingual has produced a unique and specific speaker-hearer. Each of you is unique. Each one of you, okay, is unique, my dear colleagues. Each non-native speaker is unique with their background, L1, English repertoire. So each non-native speaker is a unique and specific speaker and hearer. We also see the goal of development of capacity for effective use of English, which includes exploiting whatever linguistic resources are available, no matter how formally defective they are. And, sorry for this, but I can't see, okay. According to the GE perspective, the non-native speaker is a unique being, a multi-competent user of language in Cook's terms, who should be assessed in his or her own right, rather than assessed against a native speaker benchmark. And I, as a non-native speaker, have firmly supported the view since I learned about it, as I have always felt myself to be different from native speakers, as well as my English to have a life, a story of its own, not similar to a native speaker's English. So each of the Englishes we have, okay, each of them has got their own stories, their own backgrounds. And these are not similar to a native speaker's English since they learn it by birth. And do you feel the same? Do you feel the same? Let me get your reactions. Yes, okay. Yes, yes, all right. You feel the same, my dear colleagues? And any reactions from here? Okay. All right. And I have found any type of impositions to blindly imitate the native speaker unreasonable all my life, blindly imitate. It may be a choice, maybe, but it's not a necessity. And after I was introduced to GE, I discovered that I was integrating a GE perspective into my classes as a teacher without being aware of the fact that I was doing so. This was my 11th year in teaching. And until I was introduced to GE, I was like the teacher type categorized by Sfakis as the one who may know nothing about the issue, but may unknowingly integrate it in their class. Maybe you were like that. You were doing so until you had been doing so until you were introduced to GE. That is, after being informed about GE-aware pedagogy, I realized I had never forced my students to imitate native speakers and acknowledged the way they spoke English as long as they maintained intelligibility. I realized this. Being intelligible had been a criterion in my corrections in speaking, and I tended to skip the pronunciation sections of the books that seemed to be too prescriptive and foreign. And I had also done my best to integrate the students' local cultures in the classes. I always asked them questions about their lives and their cultures. And I allowed L1 in the class as a resource when need be. So my colleagues, think about your previous English learning or English teaching experience. Did you experience any of these aspects in your previous English learning teaching experience? You can write in the chat box if you want. Did you experience any of these aspects in your previous English learning or teaching experience? Okay. Okay, reactions. All right. So accent wasn't prioritized, maybe you mean. That's nice. Okay, think about your own teaching and learning experience. Did you experience these? And we will come to this after my presentation as well. But you may have seen GE-related approaches in your life as a student, and also you have applied GE-related approaches in your life as a teacher. And that was presented to you to refer to this point. And the GE perspective is also in line with my egalitarian and humanistic worldview. It accepts non-native speakers as they are with their own intelligible ways of speaking, local cultures, and L1s and additional languages. Okay? And what can we do with respect to GE-aware pedagogy in the English classroom? First of all, I would like to state that the practices I will suggest not only include the outcomes of the global English-related research I conducted, particularly with pre-service teachers, but also carry traces of my GE-aware pedagogical implementations in my own tertiary level EFL, ESP classes. So they carry traces of my own applications as well, and also my own studies. So integration of GE into teaching experience can take place in explicit ways, implicit ways, or in hybrid ways, okay? Or in hybrid ways, or in both ways. Please listen carefully. From now on, we will focus on how these ways of GE integration can be applied. And you will later on tell me if you would like to apply any of these ways in your English classes, okay? So please listen carefully. Explicit ways, implicit ways, and hybrid ways, my dear colleagues. In explicit GE integration in the lesson, there is direct reference to GE and or related concepts. the teacher directly gives information about the concept of global Englishes and related terms like ELF, okay? The teacher explains what ELF is through, or GE is, through videos, through audio displays of non-native speakers and readings on GE, okay? And in explicit ways, GE is introduced as a social linguistic concept. And there are overt explanations about GE and GE-related issues, such as non-native varieties of English, the status and roles of native speakers and non-native speakers in today's world, and intelligibility. So you give explicit information to the students about these issues. Learners critically reflect on and discuss the given GE-related topics. In implicit integration, in implicit G integration in the lesson, there is no direct and open reference to the concept of global Englishes, okay? There are G-related components in the lesson like, okay, let me try the speaker mode. Video displays of non-native speakers where they speak with their own Englishes, conversations about the students' own cultures or different non-native speakers' cultures, intelligible variations not corrected by the teacher intentionally, or limited use of L1. But there is no explicit information about G. The teacher is ELF aware, G aware, and are doing these intentionally, okay? And G is not the focus of the lesson. It is handled tacitly to enrich the lesson and to complement the explicit implementations. Is that clear to you? Okay. Yes, you said. Nice. And implicit implementations derived from the creativity of teachers under the pressures of standard English-bound approaches, okay? They were under pressure. They were under the pressure of their school owners, parents, students. So they implied ELF integration, GE integration implicitly, tacitly. In an effort to integrate GE into the curriculum, they implemented their own ways implicitly. Thus, implicit ways, my colleagues, may give GE-oriented teachers feelings of safety. You may feel safe with these implicit ways. Okay. And explicit GE-aware pedagogy often follows this order. First, there are videos that usually belong to the non-native speakers and that you may take from YouTube or TED Talks or other many internet sites. And you show the students these non-native varieties that you choose and you discuss with them about their intelligibility, about how they sound, okay? Then there is the introduction of the concept of GE and related concepts to the students by the teacher. This is followed by the classroom discussion. And the concept is then strengthened by readings and or videos. And in the end, there is reflection practice. There are other ways of explicit integration. For example, the teachers may prefer to make comparison activities like showing students non-native and native speaker videos together and having them compare and analyze their accents and intelligibility. Okay? And the teacher may invite a native speaker and or a non-native speaker of another nationality to the class, and then they can discuss this experience by making comparative analysis. Or the teacher might also have students compare and analyze two non-native speakers talking to each other in a video, and analysis can be made with regard to variations, intelligibility, and communication strategies that the interlocutors use. You may also make use of corpora. Teachers may prefer to include conversations from different corpora, like the voice corpus, and have students listen to conversations from it and analyze the talks in terms of variations, intelligibility, and communication strategies. And you may choose to apply communication-based projects, okay? For example, you may have your students communicate with a non-native friend on social media, Facebook, internet, WhatsApp, okay, on social media, or any communication means regularly. The student is expected to communicate with the non-native friend regularly, and he or she is expected to analyze the variations and communication strategies. Yet, some teachers may prefer to integrate GE into their lessons implicitly without introducing GE or making direct reference to GE. So how can we integrate GE into our lessons implicitly? How? For example, the teachers can, or you can, enrich the lessons through the videos of non-native people or experts talking about the theme of the unit with their own English varieties, okay? You include, for example, the unit is about the protection of the environment. Then you include a non-native speaker, an expert, an Indian person, a Japanese person, okay, a non-native speaker talking about the theme of the unit. That's self-integration, because you show the students a different variety of English. And you don't have to tell the rationale behind this implementation if you're under pressure. You just show different people speaking about the themes of the lessons, all right? Or also, the teachers may integrate the students' own cultures into the lesson. For example, the given topics can be discussed from the perspectives of the students' own cultures. You may ask them related questions about the unit, okay, which orient at their own cultures. And you can also conduct role play activities as people from different countries, and they will have the idea that English is spoken by different people, different countries in the world, and you can show videos, accents of these people from these countries, okay? And other than that, the teachers may choose not to force their students to speak like a native speaker. Even doing this is an implicit implementation, not forcing your students to speak like a native speaker. And not prohibiting the use of L1 in the class and allowing it when necessary, like giving the Turkish equivalences or L1 equivalences of some unknown words, or giving instructions when the issue is not clear. So you may give the L1 equivalences of some words, okay? Or you may include L1 in the class to give praises, okay, for warnings, for instructions when necessary, because this means that you accept the non-native student as a bilingual person, as a person having this L1 in active use. Okay, and the teachers may also opt for not making corrections on variations that do not deteriorate intelligibility. And by doing so, they may inherently encourage the productive and fluent use of language. And you may set as a role model for your students, my dear colleagues. When you confidently and comfortably speak in front of the class, like I'm doing now, and when you tell your own stories and feelings as a non-native speaker to your students, you are already indeed doing some kind of ELF or GE integration into your classes, okay? Because you implicitly encourage your students to productively use this language by speaking with confidence. So until now, I have told you about the explicit ways and the implicit ways. But explicit ways and implicit ways are not binary, but in a continuum. Please keep this in mind. For example, in the curriculum, we can start with the explicit-only practices or implicit-only practices, but in the course of time, we must move to a point where they complement each other. So depending on their contextual factors, it is teachers who will decide on the contents of the combinations and amounts of the explicit and the implicit. And also you're going to decide about your correction methods, about the amount of L1 use in your classes, depending on your conditions. But the first thing is intention. You must have the intention to integrate GE into your classes. So as a reflection activity and as a review of the things that I have told you until now, Below are the main components of GE-aware pedagogy. There are different varieties of English, okay? And these are to be displayed with or without an emphasis on variations deviating from standard English. And there are local cultures of different speakers of English, particularly non-native speakers. And these are to be included with samples relevant to the lesson theme. And you allow L1 use in the class in a limited manner. And L1 use is to be allowed in the classroom as a resource to help improve English. You don't use L1 all the time. It is limited, but it should be effectively used, okay, to improve English. It's an aid. And there is error correction to be implemented, focusing more on intelligibility. Okay, you don't, normally have the intention to correct all the errors. Okay, so you focus more on intelligibility, and this depends on your own decisions. In your English language context, my dear colleagues, which GE-related aspects would you be willing to integrate into your lessons, and how would you integrate them? And if you are already incorporating them, you already incorporate them in your current classes, tutorials, which aspects do you include and how? You can write them in the chat box. Okay, please have a look. Okay, and we will talk about this more after I end my presentation, but that's a review of the main G integration practices from my studies to you. Okay, has anyone written here? No, not yet, but you're thinking right. Okay, so practical advice. In terms of practical advice, what can we do? What kind of practical advice can I give to you with respect to GE-aware pedagogy in the classroom? Adapt, my dear friends, adapt. Our books can be full of examples from native speakers' lives, yet as a teacher, you can interact in the class about the students' own lives. You can ask them questions about their own lives and adapt the topics accordingly, okay? Most of the course books may be full of native speakers' way of living, and you can adapt the subjects if you already have those course books. And use of L1 in the English classroom is not a sin. You can selectively use students' L1s and other languages as assets in the English classroom and allow their use in a limited way when need be. For example, to give the equivalence of challenging words or sentences, okay? Challenging or abstract words or sentences. For instructions, for praises, because of the amygdala, okay? The students would possibly be affected more by L1 phrases, okay? Warnings, to make warnings to be effective, or to make jokes, you can use L1 in the class. And the teacher can avoid making students speak without any mistakes or variations, okay? And she can accept the ways students speak with their own accents and variations, all right? As long as they maintain intelligibility. So intelligibility is the key. Take intelligibility as basis, then decide on your correction methods and on the flow of the lesson. And you should be a role model for your students. Belief in G makes you more confident in speaking. So with your own confidence and own style in speaking, as a GE-aware non-native teacher, you can act as a role model for your students. Please show examples of native and non-native varieties to your students, okay, through videos, audio recordings, real-life interactions, and talk about their opinions and experience. This really helps. Most people don't confess about their fears of making mistakes, fear of speaking with a native speaker, okay? They may even have fears about speaking English with non-native speakers, with all people around. So in order to surpass this fear, okay, overcome this fear, you should show examples and examples of successful negotiations of meanings with native speakers and non-native speakers. And there should be real-life communication, if possible, and whenever possible, with non-native speakers and non-native speakers. You can invite non-native speakers and native speakers online or live to your classes. And you can also give them projects about this. But first, you must accept yourself as a teacher, as a non-native speaker. Okay, real change starts inside you. You should first accept yourself as a non-native English teacher, confide in yourself as a non-native English teacher, and interact with the students and others in your own ways as a non-native English teacher. You have your own ways. You have really covered a long path of learning English, my dear teacher friends, and you have your own ways to communicate, and you should accept yourself and appreciate yourself as a non-native speaker. And talk about the language you speak with other people, and you can ask how you sound. Sometimes you may think that you are really deficient in speaking English, even if you are not so. And when you talk with your friends, especially native friends, about how you sound to them, you would discover amazing things usually. I mean, if they're not very discriminative, they would tell you that most of the time you're understandable, you're intelligible. Also, you may analyze how you sound to your non-native friends, and this would help you raise your confidence or make analysis on the way you sound and make modifications if you want. But normally, there's usually not a necessity. So what do you think are the advantages of GE-aware pedagogy? What do you think are the advantages? Anything that comes to your mind? I'm checking the chat box at the moment. What do you think are the advantages of GE-aware pedagogy? Okay, so let me go on. There may be communicative and pedagogical advantages. More tolerance, more consciousness. Yes, great, thank you. Gina or Gina, I guess. Increases communication. Very nice, Hacer Hocam. Self-confidence. Yes, Kelly, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going on since we have limited time. Can prepare learners for the diversity of Englishes they will hear. Yes, Nadia, that's great. Yes, it increases confidence, as you have told me. It increases motivation to speak English, okay? It contributes to the fluency of the speaker as the fear of making mistakes is diminished or removed. It enables GE users to feel that English is also their language, and it removes the distance between the user and the language, okay? It increases naturality. And it brings comfort to communication, makes interlocutors feel freer to speak English, okay? It gives interlocutors a sense of equity, since it provides an area where all speakers of English have equal rights. It broadens learners' minds by displaying them different varieties and cultures, so it's mind broadening. It brings flexibility to the classroom. And this flexibility makes the classroom environment more secure and tolerant. It makes the speakers confident and motivated, and the learning environment more humanistic and democratic. Okay? So confidence, motivation, fluency, removing distances, these are such advantages that you can keep in mind. Comfort, freedom, sense of naturality, sense of equity, okay, keep them in mind. And pedagogical advantages, it brings variety to the classroom, flexibility, real life orientation to the classroom. And it makes the learners familiar with different aspects and different concepts and cultures. And by focusing on the local problems, because you talk about students' cultures, you indeed have an intention to improve the quality of life, right? Because you focus on their own problems, okay, as non-native speakers. So it contributes to the improvement of the quality of life. And Kerry said it reflects the world in the 21st century where the L1 English speaker is the minority. Okay, yes. And
Elif,
the challenges?
sorry to interrupt you. would it be possible to wrap this up because we're running out of time,
Okay.
and we would
Okay.
like to have some time for the
Okay.
Q&A.
All right. In 5 minutes, I'm done finishing. Challenges. The main challenge is strict adherence to native norms. And the second challenge is exam-based educational context where English is seen like a mathematical product, as you may know. In Turkey, in some contexts, it's like that. It's not a communicative product. Okay, so exam-based educational context and the strict adherence to native norms. Also, pressure may also come from different groups, like people who can imitate native accents well, people who speak very fast and fluently. Some people may misunderstand G as an approach of editing goals without any rules, and they ignore the criterion of intelligibility. And some people may be resistant to any kind of variations, including the intelligible ones, okay? So what should we do? What should we do then? This, a change towards a GE-aware vision and perspective in the ELT world lies in, okay, our attempts to make the English classroom a place where there is sensitivity in the choice of cultural materials. That's your subject, by the way, right, Paolo? And where there is respect for the students' non-native identity, okay? And awareness-raising activities in the classroom should be designed to challenge the students' views on native speakerism and to introduce them to varieties in global Englishes. And it's necessary, my dear colleagues, to raise the awareness of pre-service teachers, academia, in-service teachers, and all the other stakeholders in ELT of G and the pedagogy of G. And we need to harmonize standard English and global Englishes, okay? We need to harmonize. Standard English is not our enemy. Of course, we need it. We need to harmonize standard English and global Englishes and highlight the uniqueness of non-native speakers. And finally, if we take a look at the big picture, raising GE awareness among all the stakeholders in the society will be possible through various means, such as seminars like I'm doing now, such as training programs, okay, in the MAs and BAs or PhDs, documentaries, short movies, and social media messages, okay, and social media sites like Edinet. And through collective actions within society, we can question and possibly change the established native-bound perspectives of ELT. So you should, okay, so you should include different accents into your classes. And my GE journey, from some photographs from my GE journey, like most of you, I have had a long journey in teaching global Englishes with a lot of conferences, okay, PhD adventures with my colleagues, okay, conferences, meetings, going abroad, PhD dissertations, defenses, family, with the family as well. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. If you're interested in GE pedagogy, thank you. Thank you so much. And this is indeed a revision about GE integration into your classes, okay? Different varieties of English, local cultures, L1 use, and error correction. Please focus on these.
Thank you so much, Elif, for this presentation. I'm sorry, my computer is going insane right now, so I'm having trouble controlling it. I just want to ask the people in that are listening whether they would like to ask a few questions to you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any questions for Elif? And please do yeah, you can go, Kelly. I'm sorry, my computer is going crazy right now. I don't know what's going on.
Would you please smile? Okay. I'm taking a picture.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I had a question about assessing intelligibility. I know that it's something that you touched upon in your presentation, but I'm wondering how you specifically go about assessing intelligibility in terms of pronunciation in a classroom, because I find it to be a very subjective thing. For example, I teach in a Japanese context, and I'm very used to hearing Japanese speakers speaking Japanese English. And so to me, a lot of these sentences and utterances are perfectly intelligible, but perhaps if they were speaking with a different interlocutor, it might not be as intelligible. And so I'm just wondering how you get around that in your own experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As you expressed, it is something very subjective and it is context dependent. So if you have this intention to integrate GE into your classes, you must first have this intention, and you will adapt the GE-aware pedagogy into the context that you have. Because, I mean, for Japanese, for example, among Japanese speakers, something may be very intelligible to them. But if you, for example, if you invite different speakers to your classes, you might have them see that they are not that intelligible to other speakers. And then they may really negotiate on the things that are intelligible, the things that are not, okay? So it's context dependent. And ELF, indeed, GE, one of the main challenges in ELF pedagogy, GE pedagogy is this. It's context dependent in terms of correction methods and intelligibility criteria. It's so hard in that. And most of the teachers ask me, for example, they want to focus on accuracy, right? Because there are exams, because in professional corners, accurate English is asked for. Then they may choose to decide on what to tolerate and what not to tolerate. But there should be at least some amount of tolerance in the class. That's what we ask for. It's context.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elif. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. So firstly, thank you for the presentation. I have a specific question. So in Turkish, most of people use words like when we add ed to the end of the verbs, for example, worked, delivered, these kind of words, but they use worked, delivered. So when I hear this, I ask myself, should I correct this one or not? Because it's something that most of the Turkish people do, but when we hear this, it sounds not right. So what should I do in this situation?
Normally, as I told you, correction, what to correct and what not to correct is a very hard decision when you become aware of ELF and GE. But normally, as I'm also living in the Turkish context and as I have been teaching here for over 20 years, we have found a solution like this. Until the intermediate level, you may focus more on standard English because it's a fact. It's a fact of the world. I mean, they will be asked about this. Not purely standard, but for example, this ED sound is not so common, right? So we can tell them that. Also, we can give them some guidance about the standard English norms and about the ELF-aware context, okay? We can tell them that until the intermediate level, in standard English context, this ED sound is not so acceptable. So they must be aware of both issues. As I told you, standard English and GE must be hand in hand. But until after the intermediate level, when they are aware of the standard English, then it may become a matter of choice, I guess, right? You may set down free, right? But until the intermediate level, until a certain level, you must tell them that in standard English it's like this, but in ELF-aware context it may be tolerated. That's what I do.
Thank you.
Would you agree? I mean,
yeah, Yeah, this is a good solution.
But after, because they are learning English, they're in the learning process. So they must be exposed to both, as I told you, both all forms of English, we say. So both native like English and also non-native forms of English. But they must know that in order to, I mean, they are expected to be accurate in most parts of the world. Unfortunately, it's the case now. So we shouldn't ignore this as well. So it's up to you. You're going to decide what to correct or what not to correct, but I usually tell them whatever I have in my repertoire. Standard English, I kind of know it. I express this to them. Alpha-aware pedagogy, alpha-aware uses, I know it, I express this to them. Then that becomes a matter of choice. Can you suggest readings about culture and GE? You can visit my ResearchGate account. I have just written an article on culture and GE. But also, of course, you can Google it, Google the words. I hope I didn't miss any of your responses. Okay. Yes, Minister of Education. Include, maybe you understood it, Polina, right? Include, integrate after my presentation. Okay, different varieties of English exist or not. Different, yes. There are different varieties of English. Also, decision about what varieties to choose depends on you, depends on the teacher. Thank you so much, Hacer Hocam.
Right, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to say some things and then we can conclude this seminar. Again,